Welcome to Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm Grace, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
And this week, we are going to Uruguay, and we're reading Cantoras by Caro de Robertis.
Erin, it has been a while since we've recorded.
Yeah, I know, because I just got my ass back from Ireland.
And you have a lot to share, especially about the way that you got to Ireland.
Jesus Christ. Sorry to this book for being the new The Luminaries. I thought reading a book on Benadryl on an airplane was bad. No, it turns out reading a book when you're actively missing your connecting flight to a international destination and then having to spend 24 hours in the once great and since been demoted city of Boston.
R.I.P. to Boston.
Yeah, so we were hit with like insane weather. We were flying from DC to Boston, Boston to Ireland, and then our mom was meeting us in Boston on that flight. So we were going there, and we were hit with a terrible storm while we were on the plane. And then we still got on the flight. They took our bags off the flight, but they told us to stay on the flight. So my sister and I were like hoping we were gonna make it. We missed it by like 5 minutes.
It would be better to just miss it by like 2 hours.
Oh yeah, at that point. So I was like trying to read this book. I like could not pay attention. And then of course I woke up at like 5 a.m. the next morning. We stayed with my cousin. We got to his place maybe like 1 a.m. I was up at like 5 a.m. I could not sleep. So I finished this book. So I was really mad reading this book through no fault of the author or the book itself. But Ireland itself was amazing and we had a lovely time there.
And now next time I've never been. If I ever get to go, I will just take the itinerary that you worked so hard on.
Oh my God, exactly. The itinerary was great. I used the me and Santiago method of trip planning, which is we build everything in for longer than it takes. Like say we're going to visit a cathedral, I'll build that in like a 2-hour time slot when really that's going to be like 45 minutes max. So then you have built-in free time.
Love that.
And it works lovely. And we had an amazing time. We were in Dublin and we were in Galway.
What was the like one best thing that you saw?
Ooh, when we were in Galway, we took a ferry boat to Inishmore, which is one of the islands off the coast. And it was just like absolutely beautiful. And we just walked around in the water. And then on the way back, we saw the cliffs of Moher, which was stunning. So I would say that whole day was probably the best thing.
That's delightful.
It was delightful. And I also got Flynn, who was currently sleeping on my lap, a lovely woolen sweater that she really does not like.
Well, she is a fashion diva against her will.
You know, it's what happens. So it's fine. But now today was my first day back to work. And sorry, Santiago's here slowly taking out the recycling. So it was my first day back to work today. Awful.
Probably sucked.
Awful. Just like my team did a mostly great job last week. You know how things go. Like I'm happy. Things are fine. But just like no matter what is always a shit show going back after a week off. And like I just have so many things that I don't even know I need to do.
Well, hopefully a couple days will settle that out. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I woke up extra early to get because I have to commute and it's super long. So I woke up extra early to get to the office early. So I'm really tired, but that's okay.
Because we're here pod recording.
Exactly. And I hear you have some good news to share.
Yes. For the bulk of this month, I have not had AC. Our entire system had to get replaced, but it is fixed now.
Thank God, because you keep your house freezing.
Yeah, you keep your house really hot.
Well, I turned down the AC because you were coming over today.
Yes, and I feel lovely, so thank you. But yes, it is. Luckily, we are not at the peak of the heat of the year, so it was mostly bearable, but I can't live that long without cold air.
No, that's fair. And it's like the temperature, at least this week, has been you can have your windows open in the morning and get cool air in, but then you have to shut it. So it's going to get gross.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, you did not have a great time reading Cantoras on the plane and in Boston. Did you have a great time reading anything else?
Well, I'm currently enjoying something that I'm reading very much. It is the return of beloved friend of the pod, Kristen Hanna.
One of your favorite friends of the pod, I might argue.
I would say, yeah. I just reread, or not reread, but I just read a new Lisa C. pretty recently. And I would say I would rank Lisa C. and Kristen Hanna up there as besties of the pod, frankly. We both ranked them highly.
Is that a new designation?
I think,
not just friend of the pod, bestie of the pod?
I think bestie of the pod is when they get 5 stars.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we've elevated it. However, best friend forever, we're just a petties.
Oh, yeah. That's our girl.
She's engaged with us on Twitter.
That's our girl for all time.
But anyways, I'm reading Firefly Lane, which I did not know was historical fiction, but it starts in the 70s and progresses through like a couple decades. And there's a Netflix show based on it. I am like whipping through this book. I really like it.
That's the thing. I still have not read any other Kristen Hanna, even though I definitely will, because like I've said many times before, I own The Women. But that's the thing that stuck out to me the most about The Four Winds was how compulsively readable it was.
Oh, yeah. And even more so if you did the audiobook with the Italian accents.
Oh my gosh. Then it's just a hoot and a half.
Exactly. What do you have something interesting noted on our script here?
Okay, so when you were in Ireland, you truly
connecting with the homeland.
Exactly. You truly are an influencer because every other single person that I know decided to go on a trip that week. So I had nothing to do.
Actually, I heard you went to dinner with Santiago, so you did have something to do.
Santiago entertained me for a collective 2 hours of my 10 days by myself.
Okay.
But I had a whole week where I was just I don't have anything to do. Even my mom was on a trip. So it was I can't even just call my mom like I normally would do. So I decided for a week I was going to read a book every day.
Oh, okay.
And I did do it. It was less fun than I thought it would be.
What was the best and what was the worst?
Let's see. I read another pod book. It kind of fell somewhere in the middle of best and worst. And I read another Emma Donoghue.
Oh,
that was
lovely.
A very big thumbs up. I mentioned on our Pull of the Stars episode that this year I'm trying to read the 3 of hers that I have not read yet.
Okay.
So now I have checked 1 off the list.
All right. So only 2 left to go.
Left to go.
That's exciting. Okay. I don't think I would like to do that challenge that much.
See, what I came to realize is I definitely can read, say, a 300-page book in one day.
Yeah.
But it very much depends on the type of day that I'm having and the quality of the book. I'm not going to do that every single time.
Yeah. No, sometimes a 300-page book will take me an afternoon and sometimes it will take me 3 weeks.
Yeah. So was I forcing it to make it happen? Yes. But again, did I have anything better to do? Not really. So
no, that's fair.
It was a worthwhile and noble experiment.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think it's good to push our boundaries,
Yeah.
All right. So should we talk about our special addition to this episode before or after the synopsis of the book?
Oh, let's go now.
Okay. Well, because we are recording from my house today, Santiago has had the pleasure of making us a Uruguayan-themed cocktail to go along with our book.
Yes, we are hoping that this is a segment that we can add into many future episodes of the pod.
As Santiago will continue to make us drinks every week. So, Santiago, we're going to pass you the mic so that you can tell us a little bit about the cocktail.
What an honor to be on your podcast. Yes, I call it the Montevideo. It is gin infused with yerba mate, a little bit of elderflower liqueur, lemon juice, freshly squeezed lemon juice, and simple syrup. Shaken up, makes a delicious, delicious cocktail.
And it's really good.
And, of course, bitters optional, depending on how sweet you like your drink.
Exactly. The bitters add a little bit of an herbaceous taste to it.
Well, thank you. The drink is really good. However, we will probably never have it again because Santiago does not write down his recipes.
I'll write it down this time.
Okay,
well, also, now it's on record.
Yeah, now we have it on record. So this is what we need to do every single time Santiago makes us a drink.
Exactly.
Thank you, Santiago.
We appreciate his creative genius, and we are enjoying our cocktails.
All right, let's get into the synopsis.
All right. And before I read the synopsis real quick, I might add, this is a very good synopsis in terms of its length and what it tells us. We've complained a lot about ones that are too long this season.
Wait, before you begin, I do have to note Santiago is now actively writing down the recipe, so this is a big win for us.
We will be having this drink again.
Thank God. All right, now let's go to the synopsis.
In defiance of the brutal military government that took power in Uruguay in the 1970s, and under which homosexuality is a dangerous transgression, 5 women miraculously find one another and, together, an isolated cape that they claim as their own. Over the next 35 years, they travel back and forth from this secret sanctuary, sometimes together, sometimes in pairs, with lovers in tow, or alone. Throughout it all, they will be tested repeatedly by their families, lovers, society, and one another as they fight to live authentic lives.
That is a great synopsis.
That's the information that we need. We don't need more and we don't need less.
No, every time I think of the 30 Names of Night synopsis,
when
that revealed the entire book.
Or the ones from Royal Diaries that were just completely incomplete.
Or literally cut off in the middle of the sentence.
Yeah. So thank you to whoever wrote this at the publisher.
Yes,
we appreciate you.
We do appreciate all your efforts. All right, you want to tell me a little about the author?
Yes, let's dive in. So the author of Cantoras is Caro de Robertis, who is of Uruguayan descent but was born in England because of their father's career as an embryologist. They moved around a lot, first for his studies and then just for his broader career. So first, the de Robertis family lived in England and then in Switzerland for a time in Basel, and then ended up in California. That is where Caro is now to this day, I believe. And when they came out to their parents when they were 19, at first as bisexual, although they now identify both as a lesbian and non-binary, their parents began the process of cutting them off.
Jesus.
So unfortunately, that is a reality that Caro de Robertis has talked about a lot. And specifically, that the parents say it's not possible to be both queer and Uruguayan. And that really drove Caro de Robertis to do a lot of research and oral history to talk to an older generation of queer women in Uruguay, which is a lot of the foundation of what this book turned out to be.
Oh, I love
so that's
that.
Interesting, yeah. So they have come out with 6 novels between 2009 and 2024. Cantoras, which is what we're reading today, is the 4th that came out in 2019, and it won the Stonewall Book Award.
That, I think, we've had another book this season win.
I think so.
I want to say the 30 Names of Night. I could be wrong. We'll fact check ourselves.
Maybe we could put it in the notes for the episode.
This is like the season where we had like 3 Pulitzer Prize winners and we forgot every single one of them every single episode.
We just read so many award-winning books. It's hard to keep track. We just have such cerebral taste. Some of their other titles are The Invisible Mountain, The Gods of Tango, and The Palace of Eros, which came out in 2024, so quite recently.
Oh, okay.
And upcoming this year in 2025, they have a nonfiction release. It's called So Many Stars, and it's an oral history of gender nonconforming people of color.
Oh, I love that. Oh, yes. That sounds really interesting.
So that will be their first nonfiction book.
Have you read anything else by them?
No, actually, I have not. I think if you showed me the cover of Palace of Eros, I would probably say, oh yeah, I recognize that from being around bookstores. But I definitely have not read any other Caro de Robertis, or I couldn't have told you like any information about them at all.
You know what? I'm pulling up the cover now and I do recognize it.
Yeah.
So I am going to show it to you. And I do think it might have been a book of the month option one month.
Oh, that would not surprise me.
That is where I think I've seen it before.
Yeah, like it's just a book that they have on the front table in the Barnes and Noble.
It's a beautiful cover.
It came out recently. It looks pretty. I'm sure it sold well.
Yeah, I'm sure it performed very well.
Yeah. Have you ever read anything else by Caro de Robertis?
I have not. And I feel, well, I'll get into this more when I talk about my review. This book was not my favorite. It was not my least favorite, but I would really like to read other works by this author, which is similar-ish to how I felt about the 30 Names of Night, except I felt more strongly negative about my reaction to that book.
Well, also, unfortunately for you, it's very possible you'll never get to read another Caro de Robertis book because the DC Library did their damnedest to try and prevent you from reading Cantoras.
Oh my God, Grace, I forgot, with everything with Ireland, I forgot that happened. I had this book on hold and I was in position number 1 for probably like 2.5 months. And then they told me it's ready for pickup. I go to the library. It's not there. That happened like another time. And then I finally got the book, and now I think it's probably overdue.
Well, they don't charge fees.
No, they don't. And honestly, they deserve it at this point in time for how long I had to wait. I forgot what a struggle it was to get this book. Jesus.
You really put in some labor for the sake of the pod.
I did.
All right. Would you like to give our disclaimer?
I would love to. Our judgments come based on the book and characters within the book rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on, which I don't believe is the case explicitly here.
Not really.
And, of course, spoilers ahead.
All right. We have, looking at our notes here, a disagreement on something right off the top. So I feel like we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Which is, we have 5 main characters here.
Mm-hmm.
And we have differing opinions on how distinct they all are.
Yes. So for me, right off the bat, I will say I understand. As I've said before with other books, I understand I had a tainted reading experience, which you never seem to have with pod books.
It's because I don't go on planes as frequently as you do.
Okay. No, that's fair. But I understand up front I have a tainted opinion. Totally valid. However, I also have totally valid criticisms of the book,
Mm-hmm.
which come down to two main things. The first of which being the characters.
Yes.
It took me... This is not a very long book. It's like 300 something. It's quick.
No.
It was a pretty quick read. Once you get into it, once you get your hands on it from the DC Public Library, it's a pretty quick read. But for me, it took a long time to really tell the characters apart. It just didn't click for me. Their distinctive personalities. For all of them. For some of them, it was different. Paz was the young one. I got that. I got the sense of youngness of like this being a very new experience. La Venus was like the very feminine, flirty, beautiful one. Those two really stood out to me. Everyone else didn't really stand out to me.
And I feel like they were distinct for me, which is so interesting that we have such like strong different reactions to that. Because I think it is tough when you have a book with more than one or two central characters to be introduced to them all right away, for the reader to be able to tell the difference between them. I think we've said it in past books, although I couldn't name any of them for you right now, saying like, this is too many names right up front. This is too much exposition.
She Who Became the Sun.
You're right. That was my biggest complaint.
Too many names, period. Not even up front.
Yeah, they were spread evenly over the course of the whole book. They never stopped coming in, even when you were almost done.
No.
But I felt like I got them right away. Maybe the thing that helped me is the premise around which this book kind of turns, although we'll discuss that later, is these women are living in the 70s under the dictatorship in Uruguay. They're all queer, and they find this little kind of abandoned hut in this beach town that no one goes to. It's like mostly populated by fishermen. And they make it their kind of oasis where they can come and like be their authentic selves.
They all go in on like a group purpose, and it's They all go in on like a group purchase. It's a really, really cheap, like essentially abandoned
like one room rundown. Yeah. But so the opening scene is them there for the first time. Mm-hmm. I think the first time they don't even have this house. They're just camping on the beach. Yeah,
no, they're camping on the beach. They meet a shop owner who is selling the house. And then in like a year and a half, they're able to buy it.
Yes. So, but the first time they go, there's 5 main characters and it's 2 couples. And then the younger one is on her own. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that helped me learn them a little more. They were like kind of organized into slots.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I just felt, especially the first time we switched voices from one to another, I felt like I got where we were going with it. So interesting that for me, this is one of those things, it's just a matter of opinion. Normally when we have differing opinions, one of us will say, oh, I think this. And the other one will say, oh, I think this, but I see what you mean. Like in this case, we just had different experiences of the beginning of this book.
I do not see what you mean at all in this one. And I think this book as a whole, like sometimes when I have books, I feel like, not sometimes, most of the times on the pod when I have books that don't click for me. And I'm not even saying don't like, because I did like this. It was getting ahead of myself. It's a fine for me, even fine. Usually I have suggestions on how I could have improved it. Mm-hmm. Like how my experience would have been improved as a reader. Really nothing for this one. Like some stuff about the pacing, which is my other issue with the book, which we can talk about later. But there's overall, like, it just felt like something was lacking for me. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Sometimes a book just doesn't click for you.
Yeah, sometimes, and that's simple as that. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, I thought this was a great concept. I enjoyed it. And like in theory, looking back on it, I liked it so much. But my reading experience, none of this clicked for me. I think part of it was my, the trauma of my flight. I don't even think that was most of it, though. I just think it just didn't really work for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, do you want to talk about the pacing now?
Yeah, we can start to talk about it. Some of it we'll go into later. But so it says in the... I guess my biggest issue is it even says in the synopsis it spans like 35 years. Mm-hmm. I did not think it was a good balance of the time we spent where. Mm-hmm. Like, I felt like it was almost too much.
Although, to clarify for the audience, I feel like the bulk of the book takes place over, like, 10 or 15 years.
Yes.
And then you have the epilogue, which is set in the 2000s.
Yes. And I think that might have been my issue. even like the 10, 15, etc. years later, it felt almost rushed to add those parts in.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it was rushed. And there's like a pivotal moment in the book where we kind of start moving towards the future a lot faster, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The pacing didn't work for me. I thought it was too rushed to get into the more future parts.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting because in this case, I do think you can tell that Caro de Robertis is building the story around an external timeline. They aren't like writing the book and seeing where the characters go, because the end of the book, aside from the epilogue, coincides mainly with the fall of the dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess maybe they were shaping the narrative to fit that timeline instead of the other way around.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. It just didn't really work for me. It felt like it got too rushed to move forward. Like felt like we spent a long time in like the building up and their community becoming like, we spend a lot of time in that with them working to purchase the home and then moving there and kind of those earlier stages. And then everything else just moves very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt unbalanced.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's something I'll go into. I liked this book more than you.
Yes.
Here's something that I had a problem with. It wasn't a problem that was like a huge damper on my enjoyment, but I feel like it did switch up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this book was really going to center around the house. I thought the house was going to be a big linchpin for them in terms of being their safe space. It follows them over the course of the years, et cetera, et cetera.
Like more of a symbolic role as well.
Yeah. But they really don't have the house. I think they go to the house one time before the military moves into this town.
Yeah.
And then it's no longer the oasis that it was before.
Mm-hmm.
So the house is almost kind of a red herring. It is an important part of the story. And they do visit the house over the course of the entire book. But the house is not significant in the end. Looking back, it almost feels like a way to have these 5 characters together. Because they are pretty disparate in their relationships. They even establish in the beginning, the young one, Paz, only is there because one of the other women meets her on the street and wants to give her the opportunity to have the community with the other queer women. Like, she shows up and the other 2 are in couples and she's by herself because she's too young for any of them to be with.
Yeah.
They don't really center around the house in the way that I thought that they would, which is almost a problem of the construction of the synopsis, as great as we already said it was, than the content of the book. Because it wasn't a problem in the book. I was just expecting something different.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I didn't have an issue with that either. I also was kind of expecting it a little differently, but not, like, that wasn't a negative for me at any point. It wasn't like when I think of symbolism that fell flat, I think of Fruit of the Drunken Tree.
Yeah.
And again, maybe we just have missed something very obvious and no one has ever corrected us.
I know. Maybe we should just send her an email, to be honest.
Yeah, and just find out. That's going to drive me crazy for the rest of my life. But I didn't think that was the issue here. That symbolism was not. Yeah.
It clearly existed. Mm-hmm. But also, it did ring true in a way of, they are doing their best to carve out this safe space for them under this dictatorship, but there really isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, but it's very sad.
Yeah. Okay, where do you want to go? Because you liked a lot more of this than I did.
I think, I was looking at our list of books that we've read for the season so far.
Uh-huh.
I think that this is our best representation of queerness as community.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, like, we had in our Pull of the Stars episode, we had a lot of conversation about how that book was not necessarily centered on queerness. It just had queerness as part of it, and how we thought that that was important to represent in this season.
And that's going to come back up next week.
Ooh. We have books like 30 Names of Night, where it's about a journey that you go on with yourself and your culture and your family. We've had other books that center around a romantic relationship, like Fellow Travelers was one of those. Mm-hmm. We have had a lot of different aspects of the representations of different importances and different meanings for queerness. And I think this one does an amazing job of establishing community.
Yeah, absolutely.
These women felt very real.
Oh, yeah.
Like, at different points, they were not always likable. They made a lot of bad choices. There was a lot of realistic seeming, like, partner swapping over the years and dramatic breakups and life changes and fights and fallouts and all of that. But you, especially towards the end of the book, when they can start to be a little bit more open, you feel that even though there are parts of the book where some of them are not speaking to others or anything like that, that their connection that they have is so important to them and important to their survival through this dictatorship.
Absolutely. So. And you can see that this book does a really excellent job of seeing or of demonstrating how that community grows over time, too.
Yes, because they are bringing other women into the circle. You'll see side characters who come to the house once as someone's girlfriend, and then later they've been folded into the group, even when they're no longer in a relationship with the person who brought them in, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. At the end, Paz opens a gay bar, and it's a sort of underground community, but it's kept up really well by the people who patronize it. It's a very touching part of the book that is clearly Caro de Robertis was keeping that like primary place of mind when doing the writing.
Absolutely. You have one interesting note that I want to touch on.
Okay.
Talk to me about Fellow Travelers and where this was successful, where Fellow Travelers was not.
Okay. One of our biggest problems with Fellow Travelers is we thought it had two really distinct themes. In the macro, it had the McCarthy hearings and the Lavender Scare. And then in the micro, it had the relationship between Hawk and Tim. And what we and data scientist Ashley said was those two themes would fit so well together, but they felt so disparate.
Yes.
In this book, I feel like you could feel the tight relationship between these women's personal journeys with queerness and the crushing weight of the dictatorship.
Absolutely.
They were so... You could not extricate one from the other. So I think Thomas Mallon, if he's still at GW...
He's not still at GW.
If he's still in the DC area...
If he's returned to GW...
He could take a lesson from Cantoras. Because I feel like the way that the story of the dictatorship was enmeshed with the queer narrative was very effective.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it functioned really well. So what I really liked is how the history was used in this. Like, it didn't... Fellow Travelers went into every single minutia. This, it was almost like... I have written down that it felt like background noise, but that feels like... That's not correct either, because it played a very, very important and vital role. However, it was so ingratiated in just their daily life that it didn't seem like it was this whole huge thing that we have to learn, like, the separate story of, like we did with the McCarthy hearings, you know?
Yes.
It was more just happening in their lives and happening to them, which is much more realistic.
I have that written down here, too, because I was doing the research for this episode, as you'll hear later, and I realized... in the book itself, you don't actually get that many details on the dictatorship. You just know that it happens. You get maybe a few names of prominent government officials. You hear, obviously, about the things that they're doing, the imprisonments and torture and all of that. But you don't know a lot else about the dictatorship. And I think that that does a service to the book. This is something really stupid, but it's one of those things that, like, a middle school teacher said to me that I always have, like, kept in my head forever. And we were learning about the Renaissance, and they said the people who lived through the Renaissance didn't know that they were doing that.
Oh, yeah.
So in my head, it's like, you're not having this view back on history. There's definitely Flynn noise in the background.
That's
so
okay.
there you go for pod listeners.
She's a welcome guest.
But that it's the experience of, yes, these characters are living through this dictatorship, and they're completely aware of it. But also the other facets of their life are going on.
Yeah.
They're still having relationship trauma. They're still having problems with their jobs and their families. They're still doing all of these other things that they can do, even though they're also living under these conditions.
So with how our discussion is going, I'm not really feeling drawn to doing the usual plot blow by blow like we typically do. However, I think we should talk about Malena's story.
Yes. That comes at the end. Is that one of the questions you have about pacing?
A little bit.
Okay. It did come up kind of suddenly.
It came up a bit suddenly, and it felt like after her piece had ended, it felt like everything moved too quickly after that.
Yeah, there was a pretty quick wrap-up after that.
Yeah, and that was more my issue with the pacing. But let's talk a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, Malena is the fifth woman she's the one that you know the least about. And I don't know about you, but for me at least, I spent a lot of the book kind of waiting for the shoe to drop. I was like, I know we're going to find out what her deal is, but I don't know when or what it's going to be.
I did not expect it to be so horrifying.
It was pretty heinous.
So essentially what happens is that she's with a neighbor girl and they're like, you know, experimenting like teenagers. They're like kissing and touching.
This is years before the events of the book. This is her like backstory.
Yes, this is when she was a teenager. And I believe I don't think it was her mother. I think it was the neighbor's mother walked in on them. One of the mothers walked in on them. And then her parents take her to Buenos Aires into an asylum where she's checked in and where she's, quote, treated by a Nazi doctor.
Yeah, that was crazy. Because first of all, you don't get that reveal right away. You just know that she is basically, they take her to this place, they give her a bunch of drugs, they're planning to lobotomize her, I think.
That's why one of the nurses helps her escape.
And then you find out that the doctor's a Nazi.
Yeah, because she's on the list for a lobotomy. So she escapes. And then eventually tries to find her family, and her family is mad at her for escaping.
Yeah, so she knows from then on, when she's like 16, she's like, okay, I'm on my own then, forever. And you find out earlier, they drop this hint in the conversation, when all of the women are contributing as much money as they can to buy the house, they're still short of the money that they need. And she just cryptically says, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
And she comes in with this big amount of money and no one ever knows where she got it. And it turns out she was prostituting herself to get the money for the house because that was how important it was for her, again, to have the community. Yeah. But, you know, I've harped on that.
Yeah. And she winds up killing herself and leaving a note for the other women telling her story.
And there's a really poignant line where they say it's the silence that killed her. Like, she could have told them what had happened to her, but she just was not able to do so. She just couldn't feel it.
I have another good line, and it might have been around that point, but I don't remember if it was necessarily, but the quote I wrote down was, it was remarkable how hidden people found each other. And that was more about when Paz was opening the gay bar and all of that. But I think it also really applies to Milena's story about how, you know, she still found her community. Even without revealing all of this. And
even though she wasn't able to heal fully, she still had something. Yeah. But they do show in the epilogue years and years later that they go back to their little beach town and they're remembering her.
And it's turned into like a gay hotspot now.
It's the Fire Island of Uruguay.
No, literally.
So I thought the ending was very sad, but it fit with me. It felt true. I hate to keep harping on it. It's kind of the opposite of what I said about Daughters of the Deer last week, how I said the ending, even though it was objectively sad, it didn't make me emotional because it just felt fake to me. This felt real. And in a way that has it's satisfying in its own way, even though obviously I didn't want Milena to die.
Yeah.
But I understood that it wouldn't necessarily be realistic for this horrible thing, living under this dictatorship, and not only that, but as a queer woman, that not everyone can pull through that unscathed. You know, that Milena's death was kind of a symbolic representation of that, at the same time as being a literal description of what happened to the character.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was... I did really like the ending. It felt very real. It was very sad, but it's also at the same time very beautiful of seeing how like this spot that was just for them to feel safe has now expanded and people can go there and feel safe.
The community grew from 5 women to hundreds.
Yeah. And it's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all I have to say, unless you have anything else to add.
No, I think I'm good to get into the history.
All right, let's dive in. I have some things to say about the Uruguayan dictatorship.
That is good. I will say I think we read a variety of books on the pod that treat history differently and some kind of like spoon feed you the information and works really well. This one didn't, and I still thought the history worked really well.
Me too. And frankly, I'm not afraid to say that I did not know about the Uruguayan dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a period of time that I am familiar with. So I'm happy to learn new history. I'm not happy that it happened. I was trying to think of a way to phrase that.
No, I understand what you're saying.
But so it was interesting to read this book and interesting to do this research. So when we said specifically earlier, the confines of the pacing of the book were around the timing of the dictatorship, Uruguay was underneath military dictatorship from 1973 to 1984. There was a coup d'etat in 1973. And in 1984, when it ended, that's when civilian elections were finally held for the first time after all of those years. They were under specifically military leadership. It's not like a normal dictatorship in the way that we might think of one where there is a dictator. Yeah. There were several different leaders throughout that time. It was mainly just that there was military control.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, even for the first few years of the dictatorship, the leader was the president who had been legally elected, but basically the military was going to take over, and he kind of went along with it as a way to keep being the president.
And they did illustrate that in the book, yeah.
Yes, you got a little bit of that. So it's kind of hard to tell. There were a lot of factors that went into the establishment of the dictatorship. A lot of sources that I touched on illustrated that. To me, it's kind of like when they teach you about World War I in school. Like there wasn't a reason for there to be World War I. So for a really long time, Uruguay actually had a really positive reputation and a really prosperous democracy. They had a really good economy during World War II when there was an increased need for exports of natural resources. So they had a really important place considering the size of their country during World War II in the global market. But then after World War II, because there was no longer the need for those materials, there was a big crash. Yeah. So then the Uruguayan community or economy was basically in shambles. So there was a lot of political unrest as a result of that. And then also there was the rise of this very far left group called the Tupamaros. We had a main character in the book whose brother went to prison as a result of being in this group. And they were doing things like kidnapping elected officials. They were robbing banks. They were bombing public buildings as a means of trying to push Uruguay to the left in their hopes of establishing a state that was like Cuba. That was their inspiration. So those are the two main factors that people contribute towards the coup d'etat. And then the dictatorship was characterized, as it was in the book, by imprisonments and murders, torture, and disappearings. So I have this quote from political scientist Edie Kaufman, and his estimate is 1 in 5 Uruguayans went into exile, 1 in 50 were detained, and 1 in 500 went into prison. Most of those were tortured.
Jesus.
So we do have 2 of the 5 women in the book being arrested and being briefly held in prison and then being released. So that's reflected in the book. About 200 Uruguayans have been confirmed to be just completely disappeared. And there still seems like unrest in the country about the people feel like the government is not doing enough to investigate what happened to those specific people. Yeah. In Montevideo, which is the name of our cocktail and also the name of the capital city of Uruguay, they have a memorial that has 174 people's names on it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've seen a few things now where there's a major LGBTQ rights group in Uruguay, and they're really advocating for more research into this, even though that's not a specific LGBT issue. There was also a bill up in the Uruguayan government in 2024 that suggested anyone in prison for crimes related to the dictatorship who was over the age of 65 could serve their sentences at home. Oh. And people were upset about that because it's like, shouldn't these people be rotting in jail? Like the perpetrators, not the political prisoners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so people were like, no, like just because you're old, you can stay in jail.
Yeah, okay. My tone was lighthearted because I thought it was the political prisoners.
No, it was the bad guys. And I don't know if that went through or not. I don't think so. But anyway, so I think I mentioned before, I don't really need to go into more detail on this, but the group of women represented in the book is very loosely based on a group of older Uruguayan lesbians that Caro de Robertis interviewed and did oral histories with.
I love that.
One of those is like 1 or 2 degrees of separation removed from the person who came up with the slang use of Cantoras. Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about that.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's talk about it now.
Okay, here, you share.
So Cantoras means singers, like female singers is the translation from Spanish. But it's slang in the book and also, in life, in real life, for lesbians. Like making women who sing.
Yeah. I feel like it was kind of used, at least the book implied, in the same way that gay men in America use Friend of Dorothy.
Yeah.
Like, they would be able to say...
Like, code.
Is that woman a cantora? Because what you're just saying is that woman a singer? But what you mean is...
Yeah, like...
Is she down?
There was at one point, two characters were on the phone with each other, and one's mother was, like, in the room. So they're like, is she... They're like, yeah, she's still singing. It was something like that. It was very
funny. And actually, today, Uruguay has a reputation of being one of the most friendly countries to LGBT people.
That's great.
Which is really nice. Yeah. So gay marriage was legalized there in 2013, which is even before the US did. I found a website with this whole checklist of things like legal rights and protections that LGBTQ people have. Mm-hmm. They do not legally recognize any gender other than male or female, but you can change your gender on your legal certifications. Okay. And also, this was, I guess, not funny, but I found it amusing, is they have on the list that it says gay men can't use surrogates. And I was like, that's a weird hill to die on. And I looked into it more, and it's because surrogacy is just illegal in Uruguay. Like, straight people can't have them either.
Okay, so I
was like, that's not a thing that you should put on your gay checklist then.
Yeah, it's not a specific... That would have been a weird hill to die on. But.
Yeah. So I don't mean to make out like it's some sort of haven, because there are still things like very comparable to America. Honestly, I felt like a lot of the statistics were. Mm-hmm. Like transgender people in Uruguay still do not have a very long life expectancy as compared to the cisgender population and things like that. But there are still political groups that are working towards it. And I think that the outlook for LGBT people in Uruguay is much better now than it was under the dictatorship.
And that is what we love to hear.
That's a lovely note to end on.
And a perfect way to segue into our star calculator.
Should I share the categories, or do you want to share them?
You can share the categories, and I'll go first.
All right. The categories are historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes. Erin, you are ready to go.
Historical accuracy, I gave it a 5. I was going to go for a 4, but I really like how the history was used and kind of ever present, but still taking a backseat to what was happening plot-wise. Mm-hmm. Originality, I gave it a 5. Characters, I gave it a 2 because I had so much trouble kind of placing them and clicking with them. Mm-hmm. Prose, I gave it a 3. Nothing super memorable for me, and I also kind of like added the pacing issues into that category as well. And then vibes, a 2. So that's a 3.4. I either gave it a 3 or a 3.5 on Storygraph. Like I said, definitely a fine for me.
All right, and for me, historical accuracy, I stuck with 4. I just felt like there wasn't quite enough detail for it to warrant a 5, but I agree with everything you said. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it was used very, very well. Originality, also 5. I think it was great. Characters, I gave it a 4. I really liked them. I liked how real they were. There were things that bothered me at times, but I just liked their dynamic together. I was very happy with that. The prose, 4. I thought it was very good and very solid. I thought at times it was a little bit wordy, like it was doing a bit much.
Yeah.
But not too bad. And vibes, 4. I thought this was a really strong and cohesive book, and I really liked it. So that's a 4.2. I gave it a 4.5 on Storygraph. So for me, this is a fine leaning 5.
You are so not generous. You are so rigid.
What do you mean? I can't give it a 5 if it's a 4.2 in the calculator.
Yeah, but you gave it a 4.5. Hang on. I have to see, because I keep my actual Storygraph ratings on my notes. So let me see what I gave this. I did not update my note document with this one, so I don't actually know what I gave it.
Look who's talking a big game.
I know. I am the worst.
Okay. Well, also, as we discovered, 4 also starts with F. So it's a 4 leaning 5.
Okay, sure.
I really like this, and I would recommend that you read it. If you can get it from the library, unlike Erin.
As I've discussed before, instead of now expecting my mom to read every single book this season, I'm just going to recommend ones I think she would like. I will be recommending this one to my mom.
Your mom and I are in our like frenemy era about books because she got mad at me because I was mean to her about liking Fourth Wing. But we had something recently that she was on my side about.
She really likes Emma Donoghue.
Okay.
And she DNF'd the third Fourth Wing book.
Yeah, so she came around to me on that.
So she's an ally now.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Erin's mom.
All right, and I was trying to make a, speaking of allies, segue, can't do it. What are we reading next week?
Next week, we are going to England, and we're reading A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall.
This is one I actually read well before we started recording the season, so we're going to have some fun trying to remember this one.
In the meantime, if you want to remember the books that we've read in the past, you should check out our social media.
That was good.
Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at @5orflop_pod.
You can also make sure to join our Storygraph reading challenge for this season and also for our past seasons, which are still live. So if you do currently have the urge to go back and read 40 children's books, you can do that. And then make sure to check out that recommendation form in our bio, or you can shoot us an email at 5orfloppodcast@gmail.com, and we'll probably respond. We check that email not frequently, but we'll respond when we can.
And in the meantime,
happy reading!
Bye!